Welcome viewers to the final day of Steelmint Engage 5.0, our interactive webinar series. We are exploring topics ranging from steel, iron ore, recyclable steel and metallics, to coal, ferroalloys, stainless steel, non-ferrous and relevant issues like carbon emissions, and also the steel scenario in India and other steel producing countries. In our quest for insights, we have engaged with industry experts who bring a wealth of knowledge, providing a comprehensive view of the market dynamics, shaping the finished steel and raw materials sectors. Our aim is to empower stakeholders in the steel industry with valuable information for informal decision making. I also want to thank the Indian Steel Association for supporting Steel Mint in this webinar series. I am Nirmal Dev from the editorial team of Steel Mint, and my colleague Anshuman will co-host this webinar with me. Anshuman, I request you to introduce yourself, please.
Thank you, Nirmal sir. Hello, viewers. I am Anshuman from Operations, Price and Indexing Department. Delighted to be a part of fifth edition of Engage, our delightful, insightful webinar series. We aim to offer you this time a comprehensive understanding of trending topic CBAM and its goal to provide our valuable insight into the current scenario of CBAM in Indian steel industry. So we hope our audience will gain some significant knowledge after this panel discussion. Over to you, Nirmal sir.
Thank you, Anshuman. Our topic for discussion in this session is India ready for the carbon border tax? I am pleased to introduce our esteemed speaker, Mr. Ashok Sharma, a distinguished professional with over 35 years of experience in the steel, chemical, and cement sectors, currently serving as the head of ESG and sustainability at Jindal Stainless Limited in Hisar. Mr. Sharma holds a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering from NIT Jaipur. He has been a key contributor to the successful deployment of rooftop and floating solar panels, green hydrogen plants, and waste heat recovery boilers. His expertise extends to both national and international arenas. A very warm welcome, Mr. Sharma. I request you now to start your presentation, sir.
Okay, thank you very much for giving the opportunity to present. So today I am going to present about the CBAM, what is the CBAM, and what need to be done in the CBAM, and how we can in the steel industry, what are the other sectors which are covered in the CBAM, and what is the procedure for products to be exported to the European Union, how to comply with the CBAM, right? So, okay, so my presentation is visible.
Yes, sir. Can you make it full screen, sir?
It is full screen now.
Okay, sir. Okay.
So the agenda today is in the four part. What is the general CBAM overview, and then determination of embedded emissions in the iron and steel sector, overview of the actors in CBAM, and reporting declarants, and submission of the CBAM reports. So we'll talk in these four topics today. And what is CBAM? Yeah, that is carbon border adjustment mechanism. So the European Union basically bring this mechanism to address the carbon emission in the six sectors like cement, iron and steel, aluminum, fertilizer, electricity, and hydrogen. So all these six products which are to be imported in the European Union countries from the other than European countries. So those will be covered in this carbon border adjustment mechanism. So whatever the like cement, iron, steel, these products are exported to European Union by the respective countries, they need to declare the carbon emission, direct and indirect, uh, uh, occurred in during process making of those products. That has to be declared. So the aim of the CBAM is to prevent carbon leakage. That is because the producers which are already there in European Union, they are paying tax of the carbon on the carbon emission produced in their products. So to put them at par with other countries where the this type of this carbon credit or carbon emission norms or standards are not available. So to put them at par with the others, so that this CBAM mechanism is proposed by European Union, right? And then already their European Union emission trading system is there. So to compete the existing producers in the European Union, so this type of mechanism they have planned. And then the final role is to contribute to decarbonization globally, and then European Union targets of carbon neutrality by 2050. Then reporting obligation in transitional phase. So there are two phases. So first is the transitional phase. In this transitional phase that will start from the 1st of October 2023, and this will be last up to 31st December 2025. So in this transitional phase, every country, oil producer which is exporting their products to European Union, they need to declare the carbon emissions, that is embedded direct and indirect emissions. And they need to also declare if they are paying any carbon price in their country. So that carbon price they have to declare if it is already available, it is in force in that particular country. And in this phase, there is no verification of emission is required. But after 31st December 25, so then they have to pay the carbon emission, the carbon emission occurred in their product. So they need to buy carbon certificates in European Union. So up to 31st December 25, this is only reporting obligation. So they need to have a database of for this period from 23 October 23 to December 25. And this is the scope in that that is in the CBAM. The scope 2 is the indirect emission, that is emissions occurred due to the electricity buy from the grid or electricity buy from the grid or some other agencies. And scope 1 is the direct emission generated from the production of the goods in the company level. And in the scope 3 is the CBAM input material, the input material which are used to produce those materials. So that is the scope 3, but the transportation part, that is upstream transportation, that is not covered, and as well as downstream transportation is not covered. Then determination of embedded emissions. So here the key terms are this: there are simple goods, there are complex goods, and then production process, production route, and goods category. So they have categorized the simple goods are the goods which are produced without using any fossil fuel or raw material, that considered to have a zero embedded emission. So that is called simple good. And complex good is other than simple goods are complex goods. So most of the goods will be complex good because every product will be using like fossil fuel or electricity. So that will come under complex good. And then we need to define the process by which the produced goods are made. And there are categories defined for the products. Then production route, by which production route this product is made. And then those aggregated goods category they are defined in this different CN codes. So these are the major categories of goods. Major category goods like sintered ore, pig iron, ferroalloys, ferro alloys ferrochrome, ferroalloys, ferronickel, DRI, crude steels, and they have given this 4-digit CN code. Like for this crude steel 7206, 7207. So like 7206, the iron and known alloy steels in ingot forms. 7207 semi-finished product of iron or alloy steel. 7218 stainless steel, and 7224 the alloy steels. And next goods are the iron and steel products. So first category was the semi-finished product, and here is the final product made from the iron and steel. So these are the CN code like 7204, 7205, 7208 up to 7326, and these are described respectively. Now steps to determine specific embedded emission, how the embedded emission need to be calculated. So first step is to define the system boundaries associated with the production process. Second step is identify relevant parameters and methods and then carry out monitoring. Third is the attribute emissions to production process and then to goods. Add the specific embedded emission of relevant precursors. Precursors means the raw materials which are used in the process, and those raw materials were manufactured outside the company. And these precursors are defined in their CBAM template, and determine the specific embedded emission of CBAM goods. So like defining the system boundaries, first the system boundary need to be defined. So which process are used to make that product, like say in steel making, like sinter plant is the process 1, then blast furnace is process 2, and then basic oxygen plant is the process 3. And power plant, basically power plant is the if using generating power in the plant, then that is another process. And process 4 will be say cold rolling, hot rolling, and rail mill. And then final products which are dispatched, like hot roll product or flat roll product, bars, rods, anything like. So need to define the complete process in process number wise. And then define the process boundaries, and then the emission, direct emission from the fuel and material, that is fuel and materials used in the process. So those are the direct emission, and indirect emissions will be the electricity we purchase from outside. So in the direct emission, there are 3 methods to determine the direct emission. One is the standard method, second is mass balance, and third is continuous emission monitoring. So any of the method can be used for determining the direct emission. And direct emission related to heat flows if relevant, and waste gases if relevant. Indirect emission related to electricity consumption, determine the electricity consumption for the production of CBAM good. And precursors, what I earlier mentioned, the precursors are the materials which are procured for making that material, but those materials are manufactured elsewhere. Like suppose we are using ferroalloys in steel making, so that that ferroalloys, wherever it is made, so those emissions occurred during making of that ferroalloys. So that is the emission caused by the precursors. So the standard method of the direct emission is simple, that is determining quantity of fuels and input consumed, determine calculation factors such as net calorific value and emission factor, and determine emission by multiplying consumption with the calculation factor. The emission factors can also be taken from the IPCC and the standard data you can take. And second is the mass balance method, where the carbon content in the fuel or input material need to be checked, and then based on the carbon content, emissions are calculated. So that is the mass balance. And third is the continuous emission method, where you need to monitor continuously basis the emissions occurred in the stack, the emissions going in the stack that has to be measured, the gas flow, and then those emission like CO2 and other emissions are measured continuously. So these are the three methods. That first is the calculation based, and second is the measurement based method. Then attribution of direct emissions. So the direct emissions occurred uh, in different process need to be sum in each process. Say there are 4 processes, so all the 4 process emissions need to be calculated and sum up. Similarly, indirect emissions, whatever the electricity is consumed, and then emission factor of the electricity. The electricity emission factor can be taken from the emission factor of the grid if it is taken from the grid. So grid emission factor need to be taken for calculating the indirect emissions. Then precursors, calculation of emission in precursors, the quantity of the precursor and the embedded emissions of those precursors multiplied by the emission, multiplied with the quantity of that precursor used. So that is the specific emission from the precursors need to be added separately. So like carbon steel production, say the just as an example, the steel production, one is a sinter plant, second is blast furnace, third is आपकी basic oxygen furnace. Just so this is an example of how much the input materials are used, like how much coke fines are used, how much iron ore is used, and those carbon content of those products, carbon content, and then emission is calculated based on the quantity multiplied by the emission factor of the carbon content based on the carbon content. And then this is the input, and then what is the output? The output is the steel production, and what is the carbon content in the product that also need to be mentioned. So the carbon remaining in the product that will be subtracted from the total emissions calculated in the input. And similarly, the deduction of the waste gases, some waste gases are used. So those waste gases quantity, those emissions will also be reduced. Similarly, the indirect emissions, how much electricity was used, and an emission factor of the electricity, and electricity from the waste gases, that emission factor is so that will be the total indirect emission will be calculated. And these are precursors which were used in this process, like pig iron, right, crude steel. These are the precursors used, the quantities, and the final products made, like the sheets, bars, rails, how much quantity was produced, and how much is the revert internal scrap is generated. So those things need to be calculated. Then this is the specific embedded emission is calculated based on the total amount of goods produced and total emissions produced in total direct emission is say 73 million ton of CO2 emission, and around 4.8 million ton is production. So the specific direct emission will be 1.53, and indirect, similarly, the indirect emission is 0.23. So the total embedded emission of this particular product will be 1.743. Now, overview of CBAM actors and reporting declarants. So this is the overview of the CBAM, how the system will work. So there are operators of installations, that is the exporting countries will be the operators of the installation. Then the reporting declarants will be the the agencies which are importing those products in the European Union. So that will be a reporting declarant. So that reporting declarant will get emission data from the operators of the installation, and they will submit in that CBAM report to European Commission. And then European Commission will generally analyze those data and check those data, and there will be a national competent authority that will check, and then assessment will be given back to the reporting declarant. If the data, there is some discrepancy in the data, that will be again given to the by assessment after assessment to the reporting declarant. So the rules for the representative, the importer is the reporting declarant, or importer or indirect customer representative may be the reporting declarant. So the reporting declarant is the basically the agency who are importing the material in the European Union and then distributing it in the European countries. Then steps to comply with the CBAM reporting obligation: define the scope of goods concerned, determine the reporting period to use. So this report will be made on a quarterly basis, say from 1st October to 31st December 23. So the report, 1 quarter report will be submitted after, say, 31st December up to 31st January. The first report need to be submitted. So this is the reporting, how the reporting is there. The CBAM, the reporting declarant will submit the report to custom authorities, and CBAM registry will get this report from the custom authority. And then that transition registry will further give feedback to the reporting declarant, and operator will submit this data to the reporting declarant. So this is how this reporting mechanism will be operating in the transitional phase, that is up to 31st December 2025. And these are the CBAM, these are the websites where the this registration need to be done by the importer. And these are the timelines for reporting declarants. Like for 2023, the reporting period, say from October to December, the first report need to be submitted by 31st January. And initially, report can be modified up to 35 July 24. And then second report, January to March, will be submitted by April 30. Likewise, every quarter report needs to be submitted by end of next month. And where to find the information on CBAM? So this is the CBAM website where you can find the website regularly for the updates, because this is also the system is under evolution. So a lot of informations are available, new informations are available on this website. So that's all about this CBAM process. So if you have any questions, kindly ask.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you for your very detailed and informative presentation. It was indeed very informative. I will now request Anshuman to kindly proceed with the question answer session.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Nirmala, sir. Indeed, it is a very good and delightful session, sir. A lot of things we have heard here is like new to the steel industry of India, and we are expecting this to be implemented as soon as possible. So, few questions that we have compiled, and few other questions are from audience also that we have lined up. So, majorly, I think sir has covered the questions, the general questions that that are frequently asked by customers and Indian steel industry. But it is like Indian steel industry is the major carbon second largest carbon emission part of the world, which is about 7%. So, like, sir, as you mentioned that 2023 to 2025, this is the transitional period of this CBAM application. So, in between that, there is no restrictions in the process and no taxation will be there. So, like, from the grassroots level, how Indian steel mills are about to start it, and they are supposed to complete it before 2025. So,
Yes.
like, this
Fine.
process, will it be viable for each and every sector?
So, right, the sectors which I already mentioned in the CBAM, they have included 6 sectors as of now that will start from this October 1st, 23. So, apart from steel, there is aluminum and fertilizer, and then hydrogen, and then electricity. So these sectors will be included, whatever the fertilizers are exported or cement is exported, right? Aluminum is exported in those countries. That needs to be comply with the CBAM. And regarding preparation of Indian steel industries, because in this transition phase, so they will be declaring how much are the targets given to the European producers, and we need to be at par with those. The Indian industry needs to be at par with those. So basically, in this, like you can say, in that indirect emissions, that is emissions produced from the electricity use. As you know, in the India, the electricity what we get from the grid is having around 65 to 70% electricity is generated to the coal. So the emission factor on the Indian electricity grid is say 0.71 kg per unit of electricity consumed, compared to the the electricity generated in European countries is basically from nuclear as well as this renewable wind and all. So their emission factor is far lesser compared to the India's. So because of the higher percentage of nuclear and higher percentage of renewable energy, so their emission factors are say in the range of say 0.2 to 2.3. So Indian industry is lagging behind in this, but because government is working on this to improve the renewable portion in the grid, but industries are also coming up to buy the renewable energy, establish RERTC contracts. Like this in JSL also, we have just signed this RERTC, renewable around the clock power getting contract with some suppliers. So in JSL, we have planned to get 100 megawatts RERTC that will be available free by 2025. So by that, we will be able to having our RE percentage in electricity by around say 70-75%. So by in this way, we can reduce our emission, direct emission that can compare that will be comparable to the European Union producers. And in the direct emissions, we need to reduce our fuel consumptions, that is fossil fuel to lesser emission fuels, like from liquid fuel to natural gas transition, and then some biofuels that can be thought of. So, and apart from that, major steel industries in India declared their aim to be net zero. So most of the companies like Tata Steel, even or JSL has declared 2050 as your net zero targets. And every industry in the steel industries are working to reduce their emissions to be competitive in the after this transition phase, so that we can be competitive in the European Union to export our products. And we get third thing is that there are huge capex requirement for this transitional phase, so that needs to be compensated with some premium on the green steel. So as of now, it is not available, but Indian government, like Steel Ministry, is working similar kind of this carbon tax in India that is under consideration.
Well noted, sir.
Yes, sir. So thank you for that answer. But just a follow-up question, sir, because you have touched on both
Yes.
direct and indirect emissions. But
Yes.
of course, European steelmakers also will be given a target which exporters to the European Union will also have to fulfill. So that is how the situation is. But sir, when we talk about direct emissions, for example, so the European steel industry is still heavily reliant on the integrated route. I mean,
Yes.
it's more or less around 55% of European steel is produced via the integrated route. So direct emissions are quite high in Europe that way from steel making as such. So what kind of targets will be there? I mean, for exporters of steel from India, or will it be very high?
So direct emission, like integrated route, like from blast furnace route, naturally the emissions are higher. So one way of doing is that, like in JSL, we are making the steel through this EF route, route using scrap. So like in our stainless steel, what we are making, so we are using already 70% up to 65 to 70% scrap. So that is the ideal route of making steel. But for the bigger plant, it is very difficult to change over from this blast furnace, because our blast furnace, we are still expanding, and so blast furnaces and all those things are very young compared to the European Union. So that is a challenge. So one of the ways to increase the efficiency of the blast furnace, reducing the coke consumption, what are the waste recoveries can be done, what are the fuels generated of gases can be used. So those things need to be implemented, and it is being implemented. So this is the way. And second thing is there are a lot of working going on in the hydrogen, so that replacing coke with the hydrogen. So the work is going on that way. But as of now, the hydrogen cost of the hydrogen producing is very, say, $4 to $5. So that is one of the constraint to using hydrogen. So there are some trials are going on using hydrogen and reducing the coke consumption in, say, blast furnace. And similarly, in the
Yes.
European Union, they have established some hydrogen-based plant in, like in Sweden. So that, but they are getting a lot of this funding from the government, like European Union now.
Yes,
That's
yes, absolutely, absolutely. Sir, we'll come to it. Of course, a very interesting point you made about green premium. So, of course, we'll come to that also. But just to stay on the subject of CBAM and of course its impact on Indian exports. So, for example, if Indian mills, I mean, just a hypothetical situation. So, Indian mills are not in a position to maybe bring down emissions to that level, and will have to pay taxes. But of course, there are other countries which also export to the EU, for example, Turkey. So, I mean, how can we see which of the countries will benefit more in case Indian exports to the EU fall? I mean, so how will the trade?
Basically, the countries which are having lesser emission, that will be beneficial. Second thing is that in this CBAM, if you are paying, say, carbon tax in your country, that will be subtracted from that. But only thing is that because we need to buy the carbon certificate in European Union, their currency. So that is the thing. Suppose I get a carbon credit in India in rupees terms, and that will not be comparable to the European Union, say, carbon credit. They are trading at, say, 70 euro or so. So that is the thing where the government of India is taking up this matter. How because our money will be going to European Union. Otherwise, that will be, and that money what they get in terms of carbon credit, they will utilize that money for their decarbonization purposes. So that is where this Commerce Ministry and Steel Ministry are working, so that how can we implement those things, and their work. I think government level they must be working that.
Yeah, a very interesting point, sir, about the carbon tax. We'll come to that. But Anshuman, your question first. Yes.
Yes, sir. It is actually from the audience side. Majorly, we have heard that major exporting countries like Kazakhstan, UAE, these people are like banning scrap just to
Mhm.
develop their own domestic market and steel industry,
Mhm.
especially sir green steel. So like India is a majorly dependent of imported scrap material. Like generation is very less as compared to the requirement. But how we can see that if those major countries are banning scrap to like develop their own domestic market and supply, so how India is forced to generate self-consumption?
So, yes, yes. In India, basically, the government of India has taken some initiatives like limiting the this vehicles running, scrapping of the vehicle policies, and then making facilities to scrap processing. Also, those type of initiatives are taken by the government of India so that our scrap availability increases in India. So that is one of the thing. And second thing is that you are right. Many countries now are trying to not to get the scrap exported from their country. So that is one of the challenge.
Right, sir.
Yes, sir. Of course, that is a major challenge. But just to return to the carbon tax point, sir, because of course Indian mills will have to pay at a rate of maybe 80, 85 to 90 euros. Whereas even in advanced economies like the USA and South Korea, the carbon tax is still quite lower compared to what prices are in the EU. So, sir, in this situation, what do you see? I mean, like with the Ministry of Power also coming up with the carbon, I mean, the carbon credit certification scheme and the carbon market. So, how do you think this will assist in the overall decarbonization effort of the Indian industry?
Yes, first thing is that this will assist. This will assist or measure this industry like steel, cement, so to bring in their efficiencies in their process. And second thing is that if we get or targets achieved, then we can get the carbon credits. So this is like the similar scheme in 2012 by BW, that is PAT schemes, perform achievement rate scheme. So that PAT scheme is converted now in the carbon emission. So the same scheme. So this will naturally bring awareness, and then naturally this will be a uh, will be beneficial to the industry for the reducing the cost as well as reducing the carbon emission, apart from the carbon emission.
Yes, Anshuman.
Yes, sir, that is very insightful, sir. So one more question that we have got from the audience. Like, sir, majorly policymakers that you used to plan, like stockholders of the steel company, these are like majorly dependent on the steel company's performance. Are they going to change their stock holdings just to invest more in green steel and just to populate this green steel culture in India? Will they promote any incentive for steel mills? Is there any
Yes,
support from that side, sir?
that's what I was saying, that for making green steel and all those the investment. So the as of now in India, there is no premium on this low carbon steel or green steel. Second thing is still there is no definition of the green steel. So the steel ministry is working on that also. What steel can be called a green steel? So Steel Ministry is working. I think already they have made some groups to make the green steel taxonomy and all. So once this definition is made, and the second thing is that the steel, if you get a premium on the low carbon steel or in India, that definitely it will be a progress towards the green steel.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, of course. That will be a major progress, of course. But sir, but one thing when we're talking about the green steel standard and all that, so different emissions measuring methodologies. Now, during even the transition phase, I mean, like you were explaining in very great detail about how the CBAM, calculates emissions from different sources and from different processes and routes. So, for Indian mills, there are no accepted standard for emissions accounting in that sense.
Mm.
So, what is the way forward for Indian mills?
Yes, yes. There are standards are there, like there is product carbon footprint standards are there, PCF, that is ISO, defined by the ISO. So PCF is basically uh, PCF and then EPD, environment product declaration, and then process emissions are declared again the ISO process. What are the process? In say in the process emissions, you need to define the scope 1, scope 2, scope 3. So scope 1 is natural direct emission, scope 2 is the indirect emission, scope 3 is your emissions occurred at your upstream, like the raw material you are buying, the transportation occurred in the raw material buying, and downstream, downstream transportation and further processing up to end of life of the product. So that is one of the system. Another is the EPD. This is PCF, product carbon footprint, where we declare the emission from the cradle to gate. Cradle to gate means whatever the products you are buying for making your product. So right from the making of those products, from the mining up to the finishing, up to your dispatch level. So that is the PCF. So those standards are there. So many companies are declaring their product PCF. So those are standard, international standards are there for that. And EPD also similarly, EPD with the scope will be from cradle to grave, like starting from the cradle up to the finishing completion of the life of that product. So that is EPD. So those standards are there. But what I was saying that the green steel what you call a green steel, so that work is going on. So in India standards that is under process by defining the government steel ministry is
Yes,
doing that.
yes, sir. And so the cradle to gate, I think that concept is also followed by the World Steel Association.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
PCF, if you are doing the product carbon footprint, so that will follow cradle to gate. And
Yes, sir.
if you are managing EPD, then it will be cradle to grave. So that depends on the scope.
Yes,
So
sir.
this
And so
CBAM, they are defining some of the PCF and extracting some because in the in this transition phase. Maybe in the definitive phase, they may be following the PCF method later on.
okay, sir. And sir, what is the scope of carbon offsets in this methodology? For example,
So,
when we have a carbon market, like when we have a carbon market, an emerging market, for example, the EU already has one. In India, it is still developing. So, in
yes.
any accounting methodology, what will be the role of carbon offsets?
So that carbon offsets, that basically government of India is working on that. So how the carbon, this one we will calculate it, how to detect it, and so those they are working on that. Some papers are published, so the work is maybe next. BW is working on this basically.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Of course. And sir, of course, we know about the impact to the other industries. For example, the fertilizers industries, the aluminium industry also will be severely
Yes.
impacted. So, I mean, just coming away from the technical point to the larger picture. How can India, leverage its diplomatic and geopolitical weight to get the best benefit, to get the best bargain out of this
Mhm.
CBM thing. So what
So
is the way
that's
out
why
forward?
I said that Commerce Ministry is working on that. So on different government, intergovernmental level. So they are studying all these things. Maybe not in last few months they are already know. So they are working on that. So India's interest can be safeguarded.
Yes, sir, surely.
Yes.
Anshuman, any question from you?
So we have questions, but as we are running out of time, so
Right, sir.
it will share it to Sharma sir if they need
Okay.
any special information.
Yeah,
So
I will share
yeah,
my mail address. So if any questions are there, then naturally they can ask me offline. You can contact me. Okay, sir.
Okay, sir. That was a very interactive and engaging session. Thank you for your time, and of course, we all have been enlightened by by your wisdom. Your presentation was so thoroughgoing. Of course, I believe our the audience also enjoyed it a lot. Of course, the rest of the questions that they have, those can be sent to you, and you can share your
Yes,
views on it. So,
of course.
and also
Thank you.
thanks to Anshuman for co-moderating the session with me. A big thank you to the Indian Steel Association also. With those words of thanks to Sir and to the audience and my co-moderator, I am Nirmalo Deb signing off for the moment. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
thank you,
Thank
sir.
you very much to everybody.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Bye.